We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
We have so many. We had such a big night. You just take a look at all of these states that we've won tonight, and then you take a look at the kind of margins that we've won them by, and all of a sudden, it's not like we're up 12 votes and we have 60% left. We won states, and all of a sudden, I said, what happened to the election? It's off. Because you know what happened? They knew they couldn't win, so they said, let's go to court. And did I predict this, Newt? Did I say this? I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots. I said exactly, because either they were going to win, or if they didn't win, they'll take us to court. So Florida was a tremendous victory, 377,000. Texas, as we said. Ohio, think of this. Ohio, a tremendous state, a big state. I love Ohio. We won by 8.1%, 461. Think of it. Almost 500,000 votes. North Carolina, big victory with North Carolina. And so we won there. We lead by 76,000 votes with almost nothing left. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list. Okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this. And as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It is the 7th of November, 2020, and here we are, post-election, and we still don't have a result. And this is, of course, not a surprise for those of us who have been here and studying things for a long time. But I feel like I'm having shades of 2000 again. I feel like we're having flashbacks again to 20 years ago, where we had the Al Gore and George W. Bush running against each other, and there was no clear result for a long time. I can't even remember now how long it went, but it seems like it was like a month or something. I don't know. You remember?
Yeah,
you remember
it was
how long?
Several weeks. Yeah, I remember it very well.
We had, and that was centered around Florida at the time, and this time we have multiple states involved. And Vicky, I don't know if you have any thoughts at the outset here, but I mean, just looking at some of these news articles, we have Pennsylvania. Poll worker in Erie, Pennsylvania admits to throwing away over 100 pro-Trump ballots on Instagram. From ABC News, we see temporary contractor threw Trump mail-in ballots in trash. Pennsylvania county officials say supposedly the FBI is investigating, but of course the FBI is led by Christopher Wray, who has been instrumental in the attempt to coup, Trump, get him out of office. So, can we trust the FBI? I don't think so. And,
no. And you know why that all this keeps happening? Because nobody ever gets prosecuted.
Yeah.
There are laws that every state has laws that control their elections. And every time they discover somebody engaging in fraud of some kind, whether it's throwing away ballots or bringing truckloads in, whatever it is, those people should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and they never are.
It doesn't seem like it.
Almost never are.
And I think really the penalties for voter fraud probably should be increased because it happens too much. It doesn't obviously deter people. And yeah, the lack of prosecution, the lack of follow-up, it's almost like, the public policy. It's almost
like a dialectic, isn't it, Darren?
It is.
It's almost like a planned scenario.
Exactly. And we know this was a planned scenario.
And that's what I think this is. And it had a national voter registration database and federal takeover of the elections, having online elections, has been the agenda item, one of the agenda items since the year 2000.
And you got to wonder why. It's surprisingly they didn't do it during the year 2000. Now I remember after the 2000 election, they passed the Help America Vote Act, which was, Newt Gingrich. I remember them. I was working at an NBC affiliate at the time, and I remember being in master control and watching Newt Gingrich on TV as he was making the case that we need to have, by the next election, some kind of a system where people can just go in and, it's like an ATM. They'll have a little receipt that spits out, and they'll be able to verify. The process will be all verified and everything.
No, that used to just drive me right up the wall every time a radio person or anybody said, "We'll give you a receipt so that you know how you voted." That just drove me absolutely crazy.
So I guess the receipts can't.
A receipt that tells you how you voted doesn't mean anything. It's only the votes in the aggregate that mean something. So you verify that your vote is the way that it is, but what about all the neighbors in your neighborhood? What about their votes?
Well, the receipts.
It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
And the question is, how many of these can the receipts be forged? But the point is that if you don't ever are brought in to ever count anything. I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, everybody that voted isn't going to come back and verify that their receipt is there.
Right.
There's no way to.
I mean, it's just stupid. I mean, whoever brought up the idea first, somebody should have just shut them down and said, sit down and shut up. You don't understand how systems work. You don't, just sit down and shut up.
It's not even, but the point is that it's a matter of control, and you hit on it. This is about consolidation. This is a state rights issue. This is a consolidation of federal power into the hands of the federal government. That's what
power into the hands of the internet mob. That's why it occurred in 2000, because Al Gore was the one that was leading the re-engineering of American government and worked on implementing the global systems through the global telecommunications system. You know, so that's why it occurred during Al Gore's
You mean
run
Al
for the
Gore,
presidency.
who invented the internet?
Yeah, that Al Gore.
You think he would want to use the internet to control people?
I think he'd love to use the internet for a voting system.
Yeah, everyththing that's going on here is so blatant. That's what's funny about it, is that they just don't care anymore, Vicky. It's almost like they want everybody to know how fraudulent this whole thing is. It's so in your face.
Exactly. You know, create the controversy, and then they will come up with the solution. And they've tried it a number of times, but the problem is that the elections system, really, it's a state matter. And they, you know, in order to do it the way they really want to, they would have to amend the Constitution. And they really can't do that.
And Fox News, I tell you what, they really showed their true colors on election night. I mean, it is very apparent they are not on Trump's side on this thing. They were so blatantly anti-Trump. It is mind-boggling. But I did some screenshots on the tallies. This was at about just before I went to bed. I was on after midnight. It was like 3:11 a.m. is what the timestamp on the picture says. The computer monitor. Anyway, it says, of course, Alaska was up. Trump was up in Alaska. Nobody cares, I guess, that much, but because Alaska wasn't one of the important states that they consider important anyway. With only 3 electoral votes, but Trump was up 60. He was at 68,831 to Biden's 39,996. So several percentage points, but that was only with 31% reporting. But Wisconsin, one of the ones that's 10 electoral votes, Trump was up 1.5 million to Biden's 1.38 million. So significant lead there. In Michigan, where we have 16 electoral votes with 71% reported, Trump was up. He was at 2.1 million to Biden's 1.8 million. And in Pennsylvania, Trump was at 2.95 million to Biden's 2.28 million. So 57.7% to Biden's 43%, with 74% reporting. Then in North Carolina, Trump was at 2.7% to Biden's 2.6%. It was a little closer there. That's with 95% reporting, though. So then there's Georgia. Trump was leading 2.36% to Biden's 2.4%, and that's with 91% reporting. So I mean, these are significant leads, and what all of a sudden it just flipped. It just flipped. And what was amazing to me about it, watching this thing, in fact, I was talking to Ron Lemons on the phone on election night because he called me and he says, he's kind of despairing. And I said, well, no, I don't have to worry about anything. I says, Trump's up in all the major battleground states. So, and I read him the numbers. And he says, and then we got to talking particularly about Virginia, because Trump was way up in Virginia. And they called it for Biden. And I was thinking, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this has got to be wrong. Why did they call it? And they called Virginia way early. Everybody's talking about Arizona right now. But what was mind-boggling to me is how quickly they called Virginia for Biden. And Fox News explained it away. They said, well, we've done polling and everything, and we've talked to voters. We got intel. Basically they got intel on the voters, and they said, so those numbers will hold. And I mean, he said it that dogmatically, the guy that was ahead of their quote-unquote decision desk. And that's what they call their, Fox News calls their thing decision desk. Uh-huh. Decision desk. Now think about that, Vicky.
Yeah.
I remember Victoria Collier, and I wish I had called it up now, but I have it over on the sweetliberty.org website. There's an interview that Victoria Collier did with the head of Voters News Service. You remember the Voters News Service? This is an organization that operates in the shadows on election night, and from which all of the networks, all of them, were getting the same information. Okay?
Was that a facility in Florida that was set up?
I don't remember where they're based. I just remember somehow Victoria Collier was able to get the guy on the phone. And they did, I think she recorded the conversation, I believe, and asked him, I should call this up. I should call this up. Because this is important. It's important to know. In fact, I got audio here from Lou Dobbs that we'll play in a little while as the show progresses, where he talks about how it is the networks that are actually making the decisions. You know, Lou Dobbs, just like Tucker Carlson, he's one of the few journalists on TV that I actually would tend to trust a little more. There aren't many, and especially associated with Fox News. But they talk about how it is the networks that are making the decisions. Let me see if I can find that piece, because sorry, bear with me, folks. Okay, here it is. Let me, you folks talk amongst yourselves while we do a little digging here.
Well, I suppose I should be talking, saying something. I don't know.
Here it is.
When the news stations formed a consortium to be the reporters of the election statistics, essentially sharing the expense. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that what this organization that you're talking about evolved out of that. At the time that occurred, that was in the early 90s, I think, when they consolidated like that.
Yeah.
Because my husband had a friend who had worked at NBC's election system, and they were shutting down NBC's election system because of the establishment of this consortium.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I call this up, I see that it's quite a lengthy thing. I don't know if I should read all of it. I might read a little bit of it here, but I'll definitely put it in the show notes. In fact, I'm going to drop it in the chat room right now. But she writes, she says, this interview was wholly unexpected. She added this note later. She says, and I admit to feeling ill-prepared. I was 24 years old, working for a small independent activist paper, the Asheville Global Report. I called Voters News Service looking for a brochure. Never would I have expected the CEO of a major media consortium to get on the phone and confront me directly. Pretty incredible when you think about it. I happened to have a tape recorder connected to my phone, something I didn't admit in the newspapers, the AGR, the Asheville Global Report. She says, since I did not disclose the fact to Bill Headline. That's the name of the guy, Bill Headline, which I have to question whether he gave his real name because, for obvious reasons, I mean, come on, Voters News Service, the guy's Headline. So I suspect he gave a bogus name. But and she says, VNS, that's Voters News Service, has morphed again into National Election Pool. So I don't know if this national election pool still exists. They do have a Wikipedia page. The Wikipedia page for National Election Pool says the National Election Pool is a consortium. So it says it in a present tense. So apparently National Election Pool still exists. The National Election Pool is a consortium of American news organizations formed in 2003, after the 2000 election, Vicky, to provide exit polling. And see, this is what it is. Voters News Service is supposed to be formed out of the exit polling data. Now, remember a moment ago when I was telling you that Fox News was talking about how they had intel into the voters, what the voters in Virginia would be doing?
Yeah.
And then they called Virginia early, very early, extremely early for Joe Biden. And they said, we got, those numbers will hold. How would they be so dogmatic about it? How would they know? How would they absolutely know? I believe it's because they got the numbers from the National Election Pool.
Probably did. That if people would tell you the truth, but I don't think there's any reason to believe a person more after they vote than before they vote. If they wouldn't tell you they're going to vote for Trump before they vote,
exactly,
why would they admit it after?
Yeah, and for that matter, if somebody was, if I walked out of a polling station and somebody asked me, how did you vote? I'd tell them to get lost. None of your business how I voted.
Yeah, well, I would now, but there was a time when I would answer, and people would call and do surveys and stuff. There was a time when I would give them an answer, but no more, not for about the last 10 years.
Anymore, you might be attacked. You might be verbally or physically accosted.
Well, I just didn't want a portfolio. I didn't want all this information in a portfolio about me.
Yeah.
Which I knew they were building.
Well, I don't even talk to pollsters on the phone. I've had them text me. I've had them call me on the phone and ask me who I was voting for. And the way I look at it, why would I help those bastards? Because all they're going to do is run to the media. The whole point that they're doing, everything they're doing is for the media or for a candidate. Why do I want to help Joe Biden see how much he needs to rig the election? And that's the way I look at that. So I'm not going to talk to them. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's a lot of people that won't talk to pollsters. And, in fact, the pollsters were wrong again. They predicted this big blue wave where the Democrats were going to be swept out. Not one Republican incumbent in Congress was defeated. Not one.
Well, that tells you right there there's something wrong with the vote, because when there's a big wave like that, it's usually led
it affects other
by
contests.
A wave in the office of the presidency.
Right.
So you can't tell me that the Republicans did so well in the congressional races, but they voted for Joe Biden?
Yeah, the Republicans did great. In fact, I got audio from a guy where I got that statement from. Let me see. Let me just go ahead and play it. Give me just a second. Here it is.
What's very interesting here and shows more of the fraud, not one Republican incumbent lost. We're already won 8 seats and we're ahead in 10 more. How would President Trump lose in an atmosphere like that? How is it possible that someone claimed that Joe Biden would win and not one Republican member of Congress lost re-election, but almost 15 Democrats did? And you know what's interesting happening? We're watching this go before our very eyes. Why is it in these major states that the big cities stop counting till all the rural votes come in, till they know how many more they need? On my way here tonight, we're ahead in a seat in Iowa, too, by a little less than 300 votes. I don't have all the facts, but I was just reported that they allowed a little over 300 people to re-vote, and now we're behind.
What?
How would all those people vote different? Yes, I don't have all the facts. Our attorneys are rushing there, but this is what's transforming out across America.
Okay, so that was GOP minority leader, House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy from California, and he was on the Laura Ingraham show, and yeah, that not a single Republican incumbent was defeated, and yet 15 Democrats lost their seats, and we're supposed to believe that this Democrat blue wave took place, and it only affected the president.
Now, what was the reason given for the do-over?
I don't know. They didn't elaborate, and I kind of, and you could tell. I think she asked him about it again, and he wouldn't say anything else because, as he said, he didn't have all the facts, and so he didn't want to talk too much about it. But yeah,
I'm sure he doesn't.
There's suspicious thing. Well, he wouldn't have brought it up if he didn't want it to be public knowledge.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I think he just didn't want to be wrong. But yeah, I mean, this is crazy. But this national election pool is something I think people need to be focused on, Vicky. Because they're evidently feeding the media information. Is this where, in fact, even in the 2000 election, I remember. Do you remember how they called it for one party? They called it for Al Gore, and then they pulled it back. Then they called it for George
Fox
W.
News,
Bush.
I think, wasn't it, that did that?
All of them did it. All of them did it. All the networks called it for one candidate. I forget which candidate they called it for first, and then they pulled it back, and then they called it for the other candidate, and then they pulled it back again, and then they explained without naming Voters News Service, that's what the National Election Pool was at the time. It was called Voters News Service, and that's why I brought that up with Victoria Collier, because they explained that they get all of their stuff from the same source. And so that's why they called it prematurely and then called it wrong twice.
Yeah. Well, that's efficiency for you. I do remember that they called the winner before the polls had closed out here in the West. And there was a big to-do about that after the election.
So Wikipedia says the National Election Pool is a consortium of American news organizations formed in 2003 to provide, and it wasn't formed in 2003, it was renamed from Voters News Service in 2003. They don't say that, but I'll insert it. To provide exit polling information for U.S. elections, replacing the Voters News Service, which had failed disastrously in 2002. Well, they failed disastrously in the year 2000, but I don't know what they're referencing in 2002. That's interesting. They say the system produced skewed results in the 2004 U.S. presidential election and in the 2016 presidential elections. That's interesting. Very interesting. I guess they're going to say that it's the polling that was wrong. Folks, here's the thing. Perception is everything. Okay? What the media says isn't supposed to determine what the real numbers are. And yet, what we have here right now, the media is creating reality. The media, they are the ones that are actually telling you what the numbers are, even if the numbers aren't what the media is telling you.
Yeah, well, we can see how once a story is out there, once the media throws something out there, you can't pull it back. And some people grab onto it, and it doesn't matter what you say after that.
Because they're programmed.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They're programmed.
Okay, yeah, apparently so.
There's a reason why it's called programming. They say as of 2017, member companies were ABC News, CBS News, CNN, and NBC News, Fox News, and the Associated Press, which feeds all the newspapers, including the New York Times, which is the paper of record from which everything else sucks. Okay? The Associated Press is huge. And they're feeding all the major networks. All the major networks. So they say, as of 2017, member companies, let me repeat that, were ABC, CBS, NBC, CBS, CNN, NBC, Fox News, and the Associated Press formerly were part of the pool, but left in 2017 due to plans to conduct their own exit polls and other experimental alternatives to gauge voter sentiment. Well, that's interesting. So the question is, Fox News has their decision desk. I would be interested to know who is on the Fox News decision desk. Who all are these panelists that are deciding? Instead of the American people deciding, they are deciding who's going to win what state.
Totally wrong with that.
Yeah, that's what they call it, the decision desk. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that to people's attention. I'll drop that link in the show notes as well. And in the chat room, I drop it in the chat room, so I remember to add it to the show notes. But it's important to know the role the media is playing in all of this stuff. And then, of course, you have all of the fraud going on. Pennsylvania, again, I mentioned before, there's 21,000 dead people on Pennsylvania voter rolls. So we got that. Then we see from Gateway Pundit, on Wednesday, Democrat officials in Pennsylvania said 92% of the vote was counted. Then, the next day, they said only 88% of the vote was counted. Generally, I find that number doesn't go down, Vicky. So the question is, what happened?
Must have gotten a lot of new ballots in overnight.
Yeah.
A truckload.
Yeah, something weird happened. We see from a website Team Trump refused. I'm sorry, I'm only going on 2 hours sleep here. Team Trump refused entry into Philadelphia counting center despite court order. They had to go get a court order. Now, you're supposed to be able to watch the counting of votes. By law, you're supposed to be able to do this. And yet, they were refused, and then they got a court order, and they were still refused. And I think the same thing happened in Florida as well. We see from pjmedia.com, Biden's Texas political director, other Democrats accused in illegal ballot harvesting scheme. So there's that. I'm just reading the headlines because there's so many of these stories, and I'm sure I don't have a comprehensive list. Ballot harvester in Texas caught on video pressuring senior to change ballot to straight Democratic vote. So there's that. From National File, we see Texas poll watcher testifies on 2020 voter fraud in Houston and has photos. So there's that. From CBS Pittsburgh, nearly 50,000 Ohio voters received the wrong absentee ballots, officials say. From Gateway Pundit, suitcases. Oh, this is fun. Suitcases and coolers were rolled into Detroit voting center at 4 o'clock in the morning, Vicky. And brought into the secure counting area. Now, what reason would you have to bring suitcases in and coolers? I mean, this is so blatantly obvious. And then there's a video of them covering up because there was a crowd outside the convention center where the votes were being counted. A crowd of people, and they were covering up the windows. And I put on Twitter, nothing says fraud. There's no fraud going on here, like putting cardboard up over the windows where the ballots are being counted. I mean, this is crazy.
Well, you know what? It's almost like they're overdoing it, right?
Yes.
All over the country, they're overdoing it. That's because they've been working on this for 20 years, trying to change our voting system to have an online voting system. Mm-hmm. Remember, it's automate everything, digitize everything. And so, I'm sure they're getting tired of this dialectic. They want to get it done,
Yeah, here's Rudy Giuliani. He's talking about the fraud in Pennsylvania, I think.
Thank you very much, Eric. It is very, very sad that we're here in the city that's really the birthplace of our democracy. And this is among...
Hate to tell you, Rudy, it's a republic, not a democracy.
One of the most anti-democratic things I've ever seen or encountered. And it's not just here in Philadelphia. This is going on all over the country. We have filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit actually required that when these mail-in ballots that are highly suspicious anyway, this form of balloting has always been considered the most prone to fraud. That's according to the New York Times when it didn't apply to candidate President Trump. Well, we were supposed to be allowed by law to observe the counting of the ballots. Now, observe means, to any intelligent person, being able to look at it. The way it's interpreted by the Democrat crooked machine of Philadelphia is that the observers can be 20 or 30 feet away, never able to see the ballot itself, never able to see if it was properly postmarked, properly addressed, properly signed on the outside. All the things that often lead to disqualification of ballots or make it very easy to dump 50,000 totally fraudulent ballots because they're not observed. This went on for 20 hours. While all of you thought there was some kind of legitimate count going on here in Philadelphia, it was totally illegitimate. So we went back to court, and we went before a Democrat judge. No need to tell you what the result in Philadelphia is if you're before a Democrat judge. Obviously a political hack who doesn't know the meaning of the word observe. Observe means to be able to look. Not a single Republican has been able to look at any one of these mail ballots. They could be from Mars, as far as we're concerned. Or they could be from the Democratic National Committee. Joe Biden could have voted 50 times, as far as we know, or 5,000 times. The ballots could be from Camden. Philadelphia, unfortunately, and I would say this about my own city, has a reputation for voter fraud. You have a reputation for dead people voting, and we're going to go look at just how many dead people voted here. I didn't think we'd have to do that, but we will. And you have a reputation for people being bussed in from Camden voting here. Wouldn't be the first time that happened. But this goes way beyond any of that. And let me also add that this isn't happening just here. We have exactly the same lawsuit in Wisconsin, where exactly the same thing happened. Except in Wisconsin, mysteriously at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, about 120,000 ballots appeared. Oh, here come these ballots. Well, we have no idea if they really are ballots. We have no idea if they're signed, if they're postmarked properly, if it isn't just the same person who submitted 100,000 ballots, and they all got counted. And this is the way they intend to win. Now I'm informed by former Congressman Sweeney, who's been going around the country and collecting this information, that similar situation in Arizona, similar situation in Nevada, and a similar situation, what am I missing, John? Where are you? In Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan. Again, let me be specific what it is. This whole new thing that never happened before in our country, these mail-in ballots, which has been a cause of real concern for everyone because they can easily be fraudulent. Well, one of the things that the law attaches to that is the right for both parties to observe the ballot, the way we do with absentee ballots. You make certain it's properly signed. On the outside, there's a signature. You make sure that it's properly postmarked. You make sure that it's properly addressed, and then you pass on it. A number of these are often challenged by the Democrat representative or the Republican representative. We never got a chance to look at a single one of them. The gentleman here who did this for us says about 100,000 ballots went through that process in the 20-plus hours in which they wasted his time by not allowing him to see a single ballot. Well, that's 120,000 ballots that should just be taken out of the count. So you want to look at that number, that 120,000 should come out. And this is an area in which Biden is getting 60, 70% of the vote. I don't know if this is going on any other place, but it is going on in enough frequency in Wisconsin that we've brought suit, and now we'll have to look into 3 other places. What it says to me is this is a concerted effort of the crooks that run the Democrat Party. And you know these big city machines are crooked. You know that. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years of one-party rule leads to corruption of all kinds. Voter fraud is one of the biggest because that's how you keep your power. But we're not going to let them get away with it. They're not going to steal this election. This election gets decided by the people. These people, the elite, they don't care about the people. The people are the deplorables, the chumps. They're not important. To President Trump, he's the whole reason that he ran for office. And he's the whole reason for which he's carrying on this campaign, so that your vote can mean something, so that your vote doesn't get wiped out by 100,000 fraudulent, meaningless paper ballots that no one gets to observe. So we are going to continue the lawsuit here. We're going to bring a second one, and then we're going to bring a federal lawsuit, and we're going to take a very good look at whether we bring this nationally. We certainly are going to bring it here and in Wisconsin.
So there you go. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I was surprised it took them so long to start filing the lawsuits. I've heard discussion about what will happen, and about the different things that states can do and things that I never heard before, in terms of the way the Electoral College works. But, whether, no matter who wins, I think the whole objective was the dialectic, create the problem and then. Well,
I think it's just.
It enables the solution that they've wanted for 20 years.
I think the dialectic is important, but I do think winning is important too, to them. And,
it's important to us.
Well, I think it's important to them, actually. I think, they've been fighting for ever since even before Trump took his oath of office. Before he was even sworn in, they were already fighting and strategizing on how to get him out. They don't like, the establishment doesn't like Trump. I think 2016 was a mistake. And I know we have our opinions about Trump, and it's not all as much as we're not part of the Trump cult, so shall we say? Okay, we look at things objectively and whether or not it's good for our country. And there's a lot of people that just practically worship the ground Trump walks on, and that's a problem. But at the same time, I think there is no question he has not cooperated on certain aspects of the plan. For instance, war in Syria. That was something that was going on during the Obama years, and they have steadfastly pushed war in Syria, and Trump wouldn't. He kept pulling back from that. He kept trying to, in fact, when it came down to it, when they staged the gas attacks, the bogus, completely bogus, very provably bogus attacks. We had the OPCW whistleblowers come forward. We had people that were technical analysts on the ground that described the situation with, the cylinder that was landed inside a building. I think on a bed, as I recall, said that the thing had to be placed there, and the hole in the ceiling was already there. It couldn't have been made by what was something that, in other words, the scene was staged according to these engineers that were there, and they were highly credible. And so we have all of this stuff was an attempt to make it look like very similar to the whole Saddam Hussein thing with this bogus allegation that he gassed the Kurds. But what was used as a major reason to go to war with them, I mean, supposedly that was, at least a partial justification. I mean, they tried to blame terrorism on Saddam Hussein. They tried to villainize him, because that's what you do when you want to go to war with an enemy. You first have to villainize him, make him look like he's not real, like he's not a real person, and that he has no decency.
What that says is that our entire public media is there. You might as well call them members of an acting club or an acting union. Everything is staged. It's all a stage play, and for an objective. Because if you look at the policies and see what they're doing and see the long-term strategies, it's just mighty coincidental that these events that happen just coincidentally happen to further along the underlying agenda. And I don't believe in coincidences. I think it's scripted. I think everything we see and hear on TV, on the mainstream, is scripted. And I'm not sure, how many of the alternate media are involved in it on a different level. But I think it's all... It's a stage play.
Yeah.
To further the global agenda of global governance. This is about power.
Yeah.
It's about power and the ability to control everything at the international level.
Yep. That's exactly right. Now, One American News did an interview with an election law attorney who they described as one of the nation's foremost authorities on the subject. She talked about the things Pennsylvania did leading up to the election. This is pretty interesting. This woman's name, by the way, is Pleda Mitchell. Listen to what she has to say.
Pennsylvania historically has not allowed no excuse absentee ballots and no excuse absentee voting. If you wanted to vote by absentee in Pennsylvania, the law required that you had to be out of the state or you're ill or incapacitated in some way. And the legislature changed that during the last 2 years, and they worked on a bill, passed a law that set forth the rules for voting by absentee and created an early voting, no excuse absentee balloting process. So that's new to Pennsylvania. But the legislature decided that. Then what has happened since then is that notwithstanding the statutory changes, the Democratic governor, the Democratic Secretary of State, they decided that they would just ignore some of the statutory requirements, such as the requirement that person voting by absentee would have to sign the carrier envelope, and then those signatures would have to be matched against the voter's signature on file at the state with the county election offices, and that would be a way to make sure that every absentee ballot that came in was from that authenticated voter. And so the Secretary of State, the last week of September, issued guidance that they were just going to disregard the signature requirement. They decided that statutory requirement that all ballots, mail ballots, had to be received in the election offices by the close of the polls on Tuesday, Election Day, and decided that they would just extend that by 3 days. Then there was also the situation where it is required to have a postmark, and they decided that they were going to mess with that it was not necessarily going to be imposed to require a postmark.
So last night, President Trump said that he was going to go to the Supreme Court. Procedurally, do you need to go and get a federal district court to rule on it first and then go maybe to appeals? Or can the plaintiffs in this case, or the complainants, can they go directly to the Supreme Court to go and halt this kind of administrative chicanery?
I actually do think that in this particular case, and also perhaps the one in North Carolina, because the court took a similar view of the North Carolina case, those have been through all the process. The court just said, we're not going to decide this now. Come back later if you need to. And in North Carolina, you have a similar situation where the statute says that all ballots have to have been returned by yesterday. The Democratic State Election Board colluded with the Attorney General and some left-wing groups that had filed a suit to extend that, not to Friday, which is what Pennsylvania is, but to the 12th of November, 10 days.
So everyone wants to know, what's the timeline here?
Well, it could take, a couple, 3 weeks.
What could the Supreme Court do?
Well, I think the very first thing they should do is say any ballots that are not received or that are not in the hands of the election officials as of the close of the polls on November the 3rd should not be counted. The problem in Pennsylvania is that you had something like 2.5 to 3 million absentee, they called them absentee ballots. And none of those were processed requiring signature matching.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Vicky.
No, but that was a very, very good report.
Yeah, One America News has actually been doing a very good job, unlike the other networks. Fox News pretends with certain hosts, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson. I think they have people like that on there. Sean Hannity. They pretend. Now Tucker, I think, is sincere. Ingraham might be sincere to a point. I don't know, but all of them are being paid millions of dollars, to be on there. So I mean, there's a loyalty there. So they're not going to go too far off the plantation if they're given their marching orders. But I think they have certain hosts on there to make the whole operation look like it's more honest. But if you were watching on election night, and we started the show off with Trump's speech about how he's going to take it to the Supreme Court and how the whole thing is a bogus fraud, and I tell you what, Fox News was very much anti-Trump at the time that he, right after he said that. It was really interesting to watch. These people are not on his side.
Uh-huh.
That's very clear.
Ever since Rupert Murdoch retired and his sons took over, it's...
Well, a lot of people say that. I don't think Rupert Murdoch is on his side either. Keep in mind, Rupert Murdoch sits on the board, the Strategic Advisory Board of Genie Energy, along with Jacob Rothschild and all the Browder people.
Well, it may be that he was just smarter in how they had a dual level message, one that seemed as if it was supporting the conservative side, but actually fed into the liberal side.
Yeah, he was better at running the operation and pretending, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
The pretend operation. In Florida, they were refusing to allow observers to come in and watch the count. If they weren't trying to steal the election, why would you? Why would you not want people to observe the count? I mean, that's so blatantly obvious. Just like you've been saying, the Republicans had to go to court, as we mentioned before, to be able to get access, which is required by law. This is a press conference held by Pam Bondi. She was the former Attorney General down there, I believe, and the Trump senior campaign advisor.
With former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, as you can see in the center of your screen there, and campaign senior advisor Corey Lewandowski, screen left. This is now beginning. Let's listen.
The court just issued an order allowing immediate access for our team to observe the voting process. Immediate access. So our team of 15 people will be headed in right now to observe the vote counting process. This is very important because, as you know, they have kept us away 30 to 50 to 100 feet with a barricade. They had a guy in there wearing a badge that's not a sworn law enforcement officer, keeping people away. This is not a matter for the Secretary of State or Supervisor of Elections. The U.S. Constitution and the legislature, under the U.S. Constitution,
I'm sorry about that. It was very noisy. I don't know if you can hear what she's saying, but they said that they were there keeping them 30 to 50 to 100 feet away. Mm. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Right. And so what they're doing is they are breaking the law. When the law is clear, they should have been arrested. The sheriff should have arrested them, and they should have figured out something else, I think, because they're committing malfeasance in office. Malfeasance. Mm-hmm. And it's as if all of this, go to court stuff. Why do we have written law? If you have public officials that are breaking the law and you have to go to court to enforce the law, then your written law is toilet paper. It doesn't mean a damn thing.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem that we're having in this country, is that the law it's written, but they're not following it.
Boy,
and
you
if
can
they
say
don't
that
follow
again.
it, then,
Yeah, you can say that again. All right, we're just about out of this hour already. Unbelievable. It just flew by. Much more to come, and I've got some other major revelations in the coming broadcast. But folks, you're welcome to call in 610-600-1776. That's 610-600-1776. If you have anything to add, anything you'd like to say, it's our country. Our country is at stake. Or you can call toll-free 844-646-8376. That's 844-6-GOVERN. We're going to take the quick time out at the top of the hour, and we'll be back in the second hour. Stay with us.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is the second hour of Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It continues to be the 7th of November, 2020. Even though we have flashbacks to the year 2000, we are here in 2020, and we are waiting for the outcome of a presidential election once again. And it is absolutely remarkable to see all of this play out. But it's not really surprising given the fact that the last 4 years has been a coup attempt. And it's really symptomatic of the much larger coup on our country, consolidating everything at the technocratic level, automating everything. I can see a push for internet voting coming out of this, Vicky.
Oh, they've already tried that. That was a really big thing in 2005 or 6. There was a push for online voting.
Yeah.
And you remember Bev Harris, right?
Oh, yeah, black box voting.
Yeah, she worked so hard to overcome the propaganda that was being put out there about online voting, and how just great it would be. And that's kind of occurred around the same time the big battle was going on for online gambling. And which, you know, it kind of coincides, you know, online anything. The basic system, the basic idea is the same. It's just, you know, the objective of the system and the design of the front end portal. So,
yeah, I mean, if you think there's no way of verifying the vote for, you know, at the polling station, and especially when you have to stand 100 feet away, they were talking about people having binoculars. Oh, you can use binoculars. Come on, are you kidding me?
Right.
You can't see anything, even with binoculars. Go ahead.
What occurred to me over the break is that this unwillingness to enforce laws at the federal level against public officials kind of goes along with breaking down the nation state, forcing everything into the civil courts. And of course, in the civil courts, people like you and me, we're locked out. We can't afford to hire attorneys to enforce our rights.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a system where you have, where you're nothing. You're worth nothing. And there's nothing you can do about anything. And that's what the global system is going to be if they succeed at breaking our nation state.
Yeah, there's certainly not going to be any way of verifying that your vote wasn't counted on the internet. That's for sure.
Well, no, that's where they get into the idea of you can print out a receipt for your vote, which is just so stupid. So stupid.
And exactly what are you going to do with that receipt? That's the question. You know, what are you going to do with it? This was Nevada is counting votes of people who have died or no longer lives there. Here's another report.
The Trump campaign holding a major announcement in Nevada. The president's team, including former director of national intelligence Richard Grenell, held a press conference in Las Vegas today. Campaign outlined their intentions to file a lawsuit challenging the ballot counts in Nevada. They say that there are tens of thousands of people who cast ballots but no longer live in the state.
We've asked Clark County for answers. They have no answers. They continue to count illegal votes. That is unacceptable, and it's giving legal people a sense that the system is corrupt.
Well, the campaign also pointed out that they've been warning about potential voter fraud for months leading up to the election. The team finished off saying they're asking for the judge to stop the counting of illegal votes.
Meanwhile, in Detroit, things got tense.
Terrorists! This is terrorism! This is terrorist action!
Well, tensions are on the rise amid ongoing ballot counts in Detroit, Michigan. Today, left-wing protesters argued with supporters of President Trump amid calls for a transparent recount of absentee and mail-in ballots. Michigan citizens are demanding a full review of mail-in ballots to see where they came from.
I mean, I'm not going to violently burn the city down, but I'm going to continue to fight for election integrity. It's not okay what they're doing in there. They're in there committing fraud. That's the problem. It is 100% wrong. John James won. Donald Trump won. He won Michigan at least. And they're in there cheating. And that's wrong.
Well, President Trump's re-election team's mounting legal challenges, as we've been reporting, to look into the suspected fraud. Analysts say this election will likely be decided by the courts.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to comment if you want to comment, but I've reached the point where I think is really important. So go ahead if you have anything you wanted to add to that.
Well, if there's a law and it's clearly written, they should be able to call the sheriff and say, enforce the law. Arrest these people, do whatever you have to do, but enforce the law.
Right.
And they aren't doing it. They're forcing everything into civil court.
And the Justice Department isn't doing it either. Now,
right, exactly.
Certain people I saw, John Solomon on Fox Business. He was saying that there's all these investigations going on at the FBI. The Justice Department is involved. Yeah, I think the Justice Department is very good at investigating. They're not so good at prosecuting. And that's exactly the problem.
Right, they write reports.
I don't doubt that there's investigations going on, but and by the way, James Comey tweeted out a picture of himself holding a Biden-Harris mug and wearing a Biden-Harris T-shirt. What a surprise! What a surprise!
Gee, who would have thought he's for Biden?
It's almost like these people want to rub your face in it and want to make it.
I think they do, Darren.
So
I think
plain.
They do.
It's a mockery. This whole thing is such a mockery. It's mind-boggling.
Our whole country, our whole legal system, it's all a mockery because we know what their objective is. We know that the objective is a global governing system, end of the nation-state structure, corporate fascism, with NGOs being your, quote, representatives in the world councils and committees. We absolutely know that. And what we know is that there is a governor on the Department of Justice. They are no longer functioning as a Department of Justice. Our laws are not being enforced except against the little guy in the street. And the cops do their job. They give you a ticket if you're speeding and all of that stuff. But at a level above, when you get to white collar criminal activity, especially political activity, the law's not being enforced.
Well, the law is being enforced against people who are in the president's orbit for process crimes. They go in, do an FBI interview, maybe get a fact wrong after talking for 6 or 7 hours, and, oh, congratulations, you lied to the FBI. We're going after you.
Yeah, but
that's how the law is being
enforced. That's a very interesting thing, a process crime.
Mm-hmm.
Because a process crime, it actually is the prerequisite to a real crime, but they never go as far as going to a real crime. Why is that? Why is that?
Because they don't want to prosecute criminals.
Right. Right. They don't want to declare any of their buddies criminals.
Yeah, well, and the question is it a mutually assured destruction? There's no way they could take Hillary Clinton down, for instance, because she would take down all of them because she knows too much.
That's true.
The Clintons know too much, so consequently, it's a mutually assured destruction. It's kind of like the deal with the nukes. You nuke us, we automatically nuke you, so you probably better not do that.
Yeah.
But Lou Dobbs had on a guest last night. Not last night. I think it was a couple of nights ago. And this revelation came out because they claimed that there was a voter glitch or a computer glitch. And this is a pretty fascinating interview. I'll go ahead and play it for you.
Breaking on Just the News this hour, a software glitch that gave more votes to Joe Biden in Michigan's northwestern state of Antrim County. It's been fixed, we're told. The glitch caused Biden to lead in the county by about 3,000 votes, but revised totals show the president with a 2,500 vote lead now.
Okay, that wasn't the interview, but that was the story. I think I got the... Yeah, I got the interview, I think, later on.
I'd be really interested to look at that glitch because vote counting is simply adding up the statistics. So what kind of glitch could there be that would shift votes? Sorry.
Yeah.
Not buying
well,
it.
And what's interesting about the glitch, Vicky, which there's no such thing as a glitch. It is a programming, you could say it's a programming error.
A design flaw.
Or a design flaw, but it's not a glitch. Computers don't glitch. They do what they're programmed to do. And isn't it interesting how these quote-unquote glitches only benefit one candidate?
Isn't that interesting? What a coincidence.
So apparently the computers are very biased in their glitches. Anyway, there was a mysterious call. That's the other thing is that One American News did an interview with a woman who had recently moved, and she received a phone call asking about her ballot.
Can residents of the swing states rest assured that their votes were properly counted? Apparently not. Miss D, whose name I've intentionally withheld for her privacy, lives in New Jersey, but only recently relocated from Georgia. Back in April, she called the Georgia Board of Elections to have her ballot canceled since she's moved out of the state. On November 5th, 2 days after the election, she received a call from a woman from Georgia asking her if she voted. The woman claimed to have a list of Georgia voters, and she was simply confirming if they'd used their ballot.
Up at 4 o'clock yesterday, I got a phone call from Brenda Holland, who asked me, from Georgia, asked me if I voted in the Georgia election. I told her that I had voted for Trump, and why is she calling me? She says she's got a list of people that she has to go through to call and ask them if they voted or not.
I reached out to the caller to ask why she had contacted Miss D and try to understand what this list of voters was. Who was asking, and why were they contacting voters? I got her voicemail, but I confirmed the name that Miss D had provided.
This was very suspicious. When I asked her why she called me, she says she's going through the list. And then I said I contacted the Cobb County Board of Elections in April of this year because I had moved from Georgia to New Jersey. So I think they are actually harvesting ballots.
I was not able to confirm what the list was, who was asking the questions, or whether or not it impacted Miss D's vote. The impression of the call gave Miss D the feeling that the caller was culling a list to harvest ballots. Did Miss D think Biden's campaign was harvesting her ballot?
Absolutely, without a doubt, 100%. Because why should they call me after the election and ask me if I voted?
Voter fraud is a very real concern, and One America News has already received many stories like this one. If you would like to report suspicious activities about voter fraud, contact One America News through our contact form on our website, oann.com.
Okay, so I think I found the clip that I wanted to play regarding that glitch. But first, I think I'll go to James O'Keefe. He's been doing some bang-up work as far as all of the vote fraud that's been going on. One of the things that he's been doing, he had a whistleblower named Richard Hopkins come forward about ballots that were allegedly backdated at the U.S. Postal Service because they're supposed to be postmarked by a certain date, and apparently certain postal officials have been ordering their people to backdate the ballots so that they can be accepted.
The postal inspector contacted you today in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
What did they say to you?
They asked me the same questions you asked me yesterday about what I'd seen and what I'd heard, and we're asking if I had any more information or whatnot.
You witnessed your supervisor backdating a ballot to November 3rd?
I did not witness them backdating it. I witnessed them talking about backdating.
What did you hear them say?
They were talking about how the day before, which was the 4th, they had postdated all but one of the ballots that were picked up as the 3rd, but they had one that they made a mistake and postmarked it the 4th.
You heard Robert Weisenbacher say this to Daryl, or Daryl say it? How did you hear it?
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Yes.
To they made a mistake on the ballot, and they should have backdated the November 4th ballot to November 3rd, correct?
Yes.
And you heard this, and since you did the interview with me in the shadows, what has happened to you at your employment? They were taking an action against you today?
Well, I'm not for sure, but they are bringing up stuff that happened like in the past.
So they brought up old allegations against you today that were already adjudicated, and they brought those up today?
Yes.
These inspectors have. What was the nature of your conversation with the post office officials that reached out to you today about our interview?
They said that I was. Well, because of certain factors, I was kind of implicated as the one who had came out, So they wanted to get my side of the story because they wanted to start an investigation into this. I think this comes from above them, and that's what I told the postal inspectors. I just think they were just doing what they're told.
Okay, that's interesting. We are now off the air on the live stream. I just got notice in the chat room, so I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to try to restart the stream. I don't know how. For those that are listening on the archive or on a delay, we're still on the air there. But for some reason, we are off the air on the... That's interesting.
That is. That's...
I am unable to get the stream up. Hopefully that changes. Or we're gonna keep doing the show because we have people that air it on a delay.
Can you put up some music or something?
No, we have
reboot,
no. Well, there's nothing to reboot. I mean, apparently the server's down. I guess I don't know. And this is
the stream
the
server
Shoutcast
on the
server.
other side.
I guess the Shoutcast server. I don't know. I'll keep trying as we're going along here. That is very interesting. But we'll have the show available on our website and on the platforms that we use to distribute the podcast. I don't know what else to say at this point. It's very odd. Very, very odd. Huh.
Well, there's been a lot of strange takedowns, when people have said things. Did you get that clip that I sent to you that was about Mark Zuckerberg?
I don't recall. I don't recall the clip. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, well, I can send you the link to it. Yeah, it was on Steve Bannon's program, and I forget the name of the guy he had on. It's a name that I'm not familiar with, but he was talking about Mark Zuckerberg providing funding for election boards. And I have an article here. Zuckerberg donates $100 million more to help election offices. Okay, so
wow.
Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan on Tuesday, October 13th, donated an additional $100 million towards helping election offices prepare for November. On October 18th, Breitbart had an article that said that Zuckerberg donates $350 million to, quote, Safe Elections, a project run by a nonprofit center for technology and civil life. Let me see, bringing their total, I have to get the total amount here in this article. Yeah, bringing their total amount to $350 million since September 1st. So that was a really interesting thing. It was on that Bannon clip that I said they cut the Bannon clip just as I was listening to it, and I was going to go back and get that clip.
Interesting.
And I found it, and I sent you the link, and I said it's 16 minutes in.
Oh, okay. Let me go get that. Well, I'm not having any luck getting this thing back up. That is really weird. Talk about computer glitches, and all of a sudden we have a computer glitch.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Anyway, the Republican National Committee chair did her name is Ronna McDaniels. she was on the Lou Dobbs show, and she was talking about the fraud that's going on as well.
I'm actually in Georgia tonight. We've deployed 4 legal teams to Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan. We are collecting statements from individuals who saw irregularities, who were part of vote counting, and we are going to turn those into affidavits and take legal action as necessary in Michigan. We've discovered a whistleblower who was an election official who was told to backdate ballots. They have alleged that everybody working in Detroit was told to do this practice for ballots that were empty to backdate them to November 2nd, November 3rd, so they would count. So these are the types of allegations that are very serious and have implications on election integrity. And the other thing we've seen, Lou, and this only happens in Democrat-run counties like Philadelphia, like Detroit, where our poll watchers who are trained, who are allowed to be there legally to observe the election so they can go assure people that it was done in a fair manner, were removed systematically from Detroit. Some of them have put statements forward, and I've read hundreds of them today, saying that as spoiled ballots were put in one box, they would look back and they would be returned to the good ballot box. You just saw in Detroit, election workers were cheering as our poll watchers were removed from what they are legally allowed to do. The padlocks are put on doors, their windows were boarded up. These types of things do not ensure confidence in election integrity. So we're asking for transparency, we're asking for patience, and allow us to pursue these irregularities and then investigate them.
What I'm stunned by is that many people don't realize we're waiting here for a media declaration that he's president-elect. It is really an expression, by the way, of the corporate owners of those media outlets and networks who would be making that decision. We've reached a pretty sorry state in our electoral process, where corporate America are the ones deciding when we have a president-elect. Don't you think? And don't you think that also should be changed?
It should. I mean, the best example of that is the early call for Arizona. Arizona had more votes out, votes that could absolutely tip the balance towards President Trump. And yet when Michigan and Pennsylvania and Georgia had significant margins in favor of President Trump, they refused to call those states for President Trump. So it's a total hypocrisy in how this is done. Now, there's going to be a recount in Georgia. There's going to be a recount in Wisconsin. There are a significant amount of provisional ballots left in Pennsylvania. Arizona still is counting votes, and President Trump continues to narrow that margin. So this is not over yet, and we're going to pursue this, and we will pursue every single irregularity. I think we've got to get through the canvassing process, which states have, and then the certification process. Today in Michigan, for example, through the canvassing process, they found an error where 2,000 ballots were double counted for Democrats. That is a problem. That's why you have
because of a software
process.
Problem.
A clerical error.
Well, that was because of a software, Rana.
There was another software problem.
Was that the software problem? Okay.
It was a different county in Antrim County where 6,000 votes were misassigned to Joe Biden. The congressman in that district noticed it. We found the software anomaly, and now we know that 47 other counties use that same software. So we're going to audit that. So right now we're in an evidence-gathering phase. That's why we have a hotline. And that we're asking people to let us know at 888-503-3526 if they have any of these irregularities that they saw. We'll pursue them, and then we will pursue legal action and let these recounts take place and let the counting finish in states like Georgia that still hasn't seen all their military ballots be counted.
Okay, so they referenced the software problem in that clip. And I'm not able to get to the control panel for the Shoutcast server. So the problem is definitely with the Shoutcast server. It is obviously down. It's very hard to work on this while I'm doing a show, and I do want to keep doing the show because we have people that rerun things later on. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and take the break. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about this glitch. You know what, Vicky? If I have to, I'll rerun this show next week. I'll rerun it again next week if we have to. Yeah. And there's some other things that I want to talk about. I was going to make a big announcement today because I've got some ideas on what we can do during the week to notify people about the broadcast and maybe do some extra broadcasts as circumstances warrant. I've been thinking a lot about this. Anyway, let's take the break. We'll be back here in just a moment.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
All right, we're back. This is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. GovernAmerica.com is the website. That's GovernAmerica.com, and we are still off the air on the live show. The stream is still down. I did just open a trouble ticket with tech support at the Shoutcast server location. That's about all I can do at this point. It's very disheartening, but we have to keep the show going because there are people that carry the show later on, and we want them to be able to have a show to be able to carry, and we can always rerun this later. Of course, it doesn't help the affiliates now that I don't know what they're doing, especially the unmanned ones. But it is what it is. We're completely dependent upon the services that we subscribe to, and at this point in time, that particular service is failing us. It's not my internet this time, and that's what a lot of times the weak spot is. But it is what it is. Before the break, I think you were going to say something going into that break, Vicky. I don't know. Did you remember what it was?
No, except that in that article on Breitbart, I would. It will be in the show notes, and Mark Zuckerberg donated to a Center for Election Innovation and Research, and I have no doubt that they are one of the organizations that's moving towards online voting, nationalization of the voter rolls, and online voting.
Yeah.
So that's what this whole deal is about. Changing the election system, digitizing it, putting it online. They're going to have everything in our country on the internet, and it won't be a good world. It will not be a good world for people.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's as dependable as our Shoutcast server is being at the moment, and as my internet has been in the past, it'll be even less of a good world. I mean, we got people working from home all over the country right now. So more and more things are being done over the internet. We had certain people thinking that broadcast television and radio should be done away with, over the air, and just have it be online on the internet. And I think this is a good example as to why you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
Because if those services go away, you need to have some sort of a backup in place.
Well, they're trying to centralize everything. Centralization brings the maximum efficiency. And since you can replicate, from country to country, replicate the systems, it is the telecommunications system that is enabling and empowering world governance.
Mm-hmm.
And people better figure that out. They better really think about this and think about if you want a world run by tech IT people like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos, because your elected representative government is being subverted left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And this is a world, the world that they're building is a world in which you will just be an object, just a nothing, a statistic, a member of a group, a set. It's, okay, anyway, I'm done.
That's okay. What I was going to tell people, I guess I'll go ahead and announce it now. Because, I've been thinking about all of this, and this conversation about Ammon Bundy last week got me to thinking about it again, because they were putting forward a texting messaging system, which I thought was a good idea, actually. And in fact, I've been looking at this before, a long time ago. There is a broadcast system on the internet called Periscope. And I've talked about it before. I've used it before. That was the platform that I used to live stream from the Capitol, where the protests were taking place, protests/rallies were taking place against the governor here in Michigan and her mandates. And this situation with this streaming platform, it's really neat. It's really a very useful platform because you can start streaming at any time as long as you have internet access, and you can video stream. People can comment, people can chat, and anybody that follows that particular broadcaster and anybody who has a Periscope account can follow your account. All they have to do is hit a button, and then they're notified on their smartphone when you start broadcasting. So you're able to go and then pick up the stream and watch what they're doing and listen to what they have to say. So I found this to be a very a very good idea. But the problem is Periscope was bought up by Twitter, which is a dungeon of censorship. And I'm very concerned about putting all my eggs in somebody else's basket. Obviously, we're experiencing what we're experiencing right now is a good example as to why. Now, in this case, I'm sure this is just a technical outage. I don't know what's going on with them, with the Shoutcast server people, but they evidently are having a major outage. I can't even get to the page where you log into the control panel. So there's evidently some kind of technical problem. I mean, it's once in a while these things are known for sometimes going down, but not. I don't recall it ever going down for this long, for this length of time. So there must be something going on there. But be that as it may, we have a situation where we have a stream here. Normally it's up, and it's available 24/7, normally. And I was just thinking about this, where we utilize it once a week, for 3 hours once a week. And there's a lot of times there's things that when we get past the show on Saturday, sometimes we barely scratch the surface of what there is to talk about. And there's certain times that things develop during the week that we might want to talk about. So we could potentially utilize the stream more during live broadcasting. But the problem is, of course, people wouldn't have any way of knowing that we're doing a live broadcast if we decide, let's say we got some breaking news that happens on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or some other day other than the normal, regularly scheduled Saturday broadcast. Well, we could go on the air, but nobody would know unless they just happened to already be listening to the stream. They wouldn't know we were on the air live. And so the question became, like Periscope, I don't want to trust Periscope because it's owned by Twitter, and they can ban you at any time. So the question was in the back of my mind, how would we notify people? And I had looked at these text messaging broadcast services before, and I had kind of toyed around with it and kind of explored it a little bit. So the conversation we had about Ammon Bundy last week and how they're using these things for the People's Rights Organization got me to thinking about it again. And so I started looking around for different companies, and I looked at the one they're using, and they had pretty good rates. So I went ahead and signed up for an account, and I thought I'd play around with it a little bit. And so I went ahead and bit the bullet. I went ahead and set this up. And so, given the fact that we have a lot of things happening right now in our country, what I was thinking is that if we have people that want to be able to know, when we're going to be doing a live broadcast outside of ordinary show times. And I'm stressing that because I don't really see any reason to notify people if we're doing a show during the show or, during the regularly scheduled Saturday broadcast, because people already know that we're here normally during that time. But outside the regularly scheduled broadcast, if we go live, we would have to let people know that we're live. And so think of emergency broadcast situations. We want to we come on the air maybe within minutes' notice. This would be a way to do an emergency broadcast live, and assuming our technology's working, which if it isn't, we wouldn't notify people anyway. But so we got this set up now anyway. And if people use it, we'll keep paying for it. If people won't use it, then we probably will drop it. But if enough people sign up, I think it's a good way of, and this is the only thing we would be using this for. It's just to let people know we're doing a show. So people can text govern, the word govern, to 80123, and they will be notified when we're getting ready to go on the air. Or as we might text you and say we're going live in 20 minutes, or we're going live right now. And we'll have the link there. And then they tune into the regular Govern America radio stream, and it'll be there. We'll be there for as long. And these special broadcasts I'm talking about, I mean, they may not be the full 3 hours that we normally do on Saturday. We're kind of locked into to a set length on Saturday because we have other people that carry the show live. Although hopefully after today we won't lose everybody. But we have people regularly carrying the show live on Saturday, so we kind of have to do a regular live 3-hour show, a set length. But, later on in the week, we could have, we could end up going, we might go a half hour, we might go an hour, or we might even go longer than 3 hours if the circumstances warrant. But the point is you'll know about that if you text govern to 80123. So that was the idea. I don't know what you think about that, Vicky.
I think it's a good idea. It's, we'll try it. It could be fun.
I've been thinking about this because you and I have talked about taking the show, doing an extra show during the week. Mm-hmm. And I've been hesitant to commit to that because my life sometimes can be crazy. I mean, I've got a life outside of this and outside of all the New World Order fighting that we do, for our country. And so I'm hesitant to commit to a set time, but at the same time, it appeals to me to be able to come on and cover things, and especially if there's breaking stuff, to break in and talk about it or discuss it, cover it. I think it's important to be able to do that. And so anyway, this would be a way for us to accomplish that. So again, it's text govern, the word govern, to the number 80123. You'll get a message back notifying you. And by the way, you can opt out at any time. You can unsubscribe at any time. This is not something that once you're signed up you can't get out of. It's real easy, to undo. But anybody that wants to be notified, you can do that. So with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, and we'll repeat that again as time progresses, just like we do the websites and stuff. In fact, I haven't even put it up on the website yet. And like I say, don't expect we won't text we probably won't notify you on the Saturday broadcast because you know about it already. It's just things outside of regularly scheduled periods of time. Anyway, we've been talking about the voter fraud thing. There's coming back to the subject of this software glitch, Vicky, here in Michigan. There's very important information that we have, and that is concerning this. Well, let me just go ahead and play this first. This is Laura Cox. She is the Michigan GOP chair, and she's talking about this. And then we're going to get into what the software really is, because I think this is really fascinating to see that they actually used software to change these votes in favor of Joe Biden.
In Antrim County, ballots were counted for Democrats that were meant for Republicans, causing a 6,000 vote swing against our candidates. The county clerk came forward and said tabulating software glitched and caused a miscalculation of the votes. Since then, we have now discovered that 47 counties use this same software in the same capacity.
Okay, that's pretty important. Now,
that sounds like they must enter into the system. We are uploading ballots for Biden. That seems to me like the only way that could happen is that they are telling the system whose ballots they're uploading, and the system just tallies them for who they were told.
Yeah.
Rather than actually scanning the ballot and having the system accumulate the total. That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's I thought there were people that were auditing this software. I mean, that should never, ever have gotten by a systems auditor.
I don't know that anybody's auditing anything. My understanding is that the courts have ruled, and I hate to use the word ruled, but they've opined, whatever, it's treated like a ruling, that the software systems are proprietary and that they don't have, the companies that design them don't have to open them up, which is totally messed up.
Well, you know what? The way that it used to be is that the government, when it wrote a system, it would give it to the states basically free, except for, just a bundling charge, whatever it cost them for the IT people to bundle up the system and give them the documentation. But if the government paid for a system, it was then free to the states to use. Mm-hmm. And that's the way this software should be. The government, there's no reason why everything has to be private profit driven.
Yeah.
The government can do some services for us. Otherwise, why the hell do we have a government? What the hell do we pay them for? I'll tell you what we pay them for. We're paying for foreign assistance programs to implement government and systems all around the world. So they're dropping into place governments in other countries, governments and systems, meanwhile they are holding back on the functioning, the efficient and effective functioning of our own government.
Yeah. Now I want to go to this interview that Lou Dobbs had, which this is one of the most important clips that I've found. If I had to only play one clip on the show today, it would be this one, because this is Michael Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, who is also a former prosecutor. She broke the news on Lou Dobbs about these software programs. There's two of them that the Democrat operatives are using to jack up the votes for Joe Biden. They're called Hammer and Scorecard. Listen to what she has to say here.
Also breaking at this hour, Joe Biden has inexplicably had a major gain in his vote totals since Election Day. In Pennsylvania, for example, President Trump had an almost 700,000 vote lead on election night. This afternoon, the president, he's trailing Biden by 14,000 votes. In Michigan, the president leading by 324,000 votes on election night. Now, Biden is leading by 146,000. A similar story in Georgia, where the president's election night lead of 118,000 is now a deficit of 1,500 votes. Sidney Powell, General Michael Flynn's defense attorney, former federal prosecutor, best-selling author. Your thoughts first about the knowledge now that the Justice Department is involved in this review of the election.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that. I think there are any number of things they need to investigate, including the likelihood that 3% of the vote total was changed in the pre-election voting ballots that were collected digitally by using the Hammer program and a software program called Scorecard. That would have amounted to a massive change in the vote that would have gone across the country and explains a lot of what we're seeing. In addition, they ran an algorithm to calculate votes they might need to come up with for Mr. Biden in specific areas. I think that explains what happened in Michigan, where the computer glitch resulted in a change of votes of about 5,500 in favor of President Trump, just in one of 47 districts. All those districts need to be checked for that same, quote, software glitch, end quote, that would change the result in Michigan dramatically. The same thing is happening in other states. We've had hundreds of thousands of ballots mysteriously appear solely for Mr. Biden, which is statistically impossible as a matter of mathematics. It can all be documented. We are putting it into materials that we will file in federal court, and we need to seek relief in multiple states to enjoin the certification of any election results.
Well, Sidney, let's go back to Hammer and Scorecard. Are those the names that you just used for those programs? What's being done about it, and how broadly were they used by vote counters in various states?
I think they were very broadly used, but not by the vote counters. They were used by the forces in the Democratic operatives that had access to these programs through the government access points that they have, and used it illegally to change votes in this country. It's got to be investigated, probably by the president's most trusted military intelligence officials who can get into the system and see what was done. But we do have some evidence that that is exactly what happened. And they've used it against other entities in other countries. It's just been turned recently against our own citizens here to change election results. It's absolutely appalling that that can be done. And whether it's called computer glitches or something else, somebody has actually gone into the system and changed voting results.
That's called intervention in our elections, irrespective of, I guess, if they were Russia or China, we'd refer to them as meddling. But it's intervention, and it's also crooked as hell, rigging this election in no matter the jurisdiction, whether it's Michigan, Georgia, wherever it might be. What can we do about it? Because the Department of Justice, I mean, if there's evidence of that program, why not just turn it over to the Justice Department and say, and go to the courts and say, this has got to stop now. Here is the way in which it was done.
Well, we've been trying to get their attention, and we're going to try even harder, and we'll have to put it in a federal lawsuit, apparently, and get as much of it out as we possibly can. We have some excellent witnesses on the issue, but this is coup 5.0, Lou. I mean, there was no reason to think that the Democratic operatives who spent hundreds of millions of dollars creating the Russia hoax, the Steele dossier, taking us through a special counsel operation for 2 years, trying an impeachment hoax, the apocalypse hoax, the obstruction hoax, wouldn't go so far as to create every means of voter fraud they could come up with to steal this election.
What do you think of that?
The common thread systems, systems, systems. It's always the systems. That, I don't know, maybe they need to nationalize AT&T. Maybe nationalize our phone system and begin shutting down these internet companies.
Yeah, nationalizing, though, it wouldn't stop.
Well, we're going to lose our country. We're going to lose.
It
We're
wouldn't
going to
stop
lose
it,
more
though.
than our country. All of the regular people of the world are going to lose humanity.
Yeah.
So how do you stack that up?
I think many people have already lost their humanity. I'll tell you what, we're at the top of the hour. I did get word back from the people at the Shoutcast server claiming they were looking into our problem, so we'll see what comes of that. So, third hour straight ahead, ladies and gentlemen, as we soldier on. Stay with us. This is Govern America.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
From FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. The website for the show is governamerica.com. That's governamerica.com. And I was just talking to the people in the chat room, letting them know we're continuing on here. So at some point, the streaming information will come back up, and we will stream the show. And the archives will be available, as always, as well. So anyway, talking about a lot of technical issues with regard to the elections, so it's kind of ironic that we have technical issues with our streaming today. But for those that are listening to the show live
demonstration. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hammer. I think that is the same system that Dennis Montgomery built. And what it does, it captures data at the server points. And if that's what they're doing, is capturing that data and modifying votes as they're coming across the line, that is a demonstration of what can be done with a fully technologically enabled government. You're totally at their mercy.
Yeah, I found a little bit more information, and this was off of the technocracy.news website, which led me to this theamericanreport.org, where Mary Fannin and Alan Jones writes, I don't think it's Alex Jones. I think it says Allen with an N.
It is Allen.
Okay. You're familiar with them.
Yeah.
I guess. In February 2009, the Obama administration commandeered a powerful supercomputer system known as the Hammer. The Hammer includes an exploit application known as Scorecard that is capable of hacking into elections and stealing the vote, according to CIA contractor turned whistleblower Dennis Montgomery, who designed and built the Hammer. Had you heard about this before, Vicky?
Oh yeah, I followed that whole story when Dennis Montgomery came out, and Sheriff Joe Arpaio is the one who started the investigation into Obama's birth certificate, and then it kind of the detective who was involved in that got involved in this whole investigation of the Hammer and Dennis Montgomery.
They say the whistleblower tapes, confidential audio recordings released by the U.S. District Judge District Judge G. Murray Snow's courtroom in November 2015, revealed that Scorecard, that's the other program, was deployed by the Obama team against Florida election computers to steal the 2012 presidential election on behalf of President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden. Scorecard is now being activated to steal the vote on behalf of Joe Biden once again. Biden utilized the Hammer and Scorecard while running for vice president in 2012. Votes are again being stolen on Joe Biden's behalf as he runs for president of the United States in 2020. Now, I'm going to pause it right there for just a moment in terms of this article, because I've got audio here from Joe Biden purportedly talking about voter integrity. Purportedly, he was taken out of context, and that's what the argument is, or that he was misspeaking. But given what we're reading and given what all that has happened right now, this blatant voter fraud, I think it would be fair to play this audio. This is Joe Biden on vote fraud.
We're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
I think he let the cat out of the bag. Supposedly he was misspeaking. Supposedly, he was taken out of context. I don't think so. I think that his senility, he spoke exactly the way it really is. They say in the article, this time Scorecard is stealing votes in Florida, Georgia, Texas, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona, according to Montgomery. Scorecard steals elections by tampering with the computers at the transfer points of state election computer systems and outside third-party election data vaults as votes are being transferred. Scorecard uses a prismatic scoring algorithm that Montgomery created to achieve the desired results by those that control the Hammer and Scorecard. In Florida, one of the transfer points is VR Systems Incorporated, based in Tallahassee. Software vendor VR Systems operates in 8 U.S. states. The Democrats tested their technology during the Democrat Party primaries. Otherwise, Bernie Sanders would have won the 2020 nomination. Scorecard was utilized on behalf of Joe Biden during the 2020 primary against Bernie Sanders. The Democrat primary was stolen from Bernie Sanders. CIA whistleblower Dennis Montgomery turned over a massive cache of illegally harvested surveillance and election data in August of 2015 and December 2015 to the FBI and CIA under 2 immunity agreements that were granted to Montgomery by Assistant U.S. Attorney Deborah Curtis and FBI General Counsel James Baker. Now, if you have anything you wanted to say, just feel free to jump in at any time, Vicky. I can't think of anything more.
During the 2000 election debacle, there was a guy who came out and came public with, he was using technology to manipulate the votes also. I don't know. I have a vague memory of it, but as you were reading that, it came back to me, but I don't remember the guy's name. But it was in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been working on this for a long time. I mean, this is... when you think of the stakes that are involved in something, in a U.S. election, you can see why people would take the risk. It's worth the risk. You know, when you shoplift at a gas station, it's really not worth the risk. But if you are going for control of a country like the United States, the calculation is it's worth the risk.
Well, for many people who shoplift at gas stations, the gas stations often don't prosecute. I've noticed there's a YouTube channel called Gas Station Encounters, which all they do is, because these are people that own a gas station, and all they do is expose the criminals that come in their store and steal stuff. It's a pretty interesting, albeit very depressing for me, because it's a sad commentary on society. But they have people of all different stripes come in there and stealing things. And a lot of times I don't think they even bother to prosecute. A lot of times I don't even think the authorities do much about it if they try to prosecute.
I don't know.
So that's why they've taken to public shaming.
That, but it's risk. The calculation is risk reward. And so...
What do you mean you don't know about that?
Well, I don't know about gas stations and, shoplifting and letting people go and stuff like that. I haven't looked into any of that.
Well, that's what the claim is from the gas station. But given the fact, here's the thing. Given the fact that we know, and we've talked about the trends in policing lately, where if something is under a certain dollar amount, like, $1,000 or whatever, they consider it small petty crime. They don't even bother to prosecute them for that.
Yeah, well, that's community policing.
Yes, it's
turning police officers. See, the redefinition of jobs that people do is a big part of the strategy of the conversion, and there really is no better example than community policing and turning the police into social workers.
Mm-hmm.
And turning our military into first responders, rather than being a military, you go respond to a hurricane somewhere. Redefinition of jobs, and in the process of doing that, they create an entirely dysfunctional domestic system.
Yeah.
That's really the importance of systems and understanding how systems are designed, because the systems are designed with built-in incentives to either do the right thing or do the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you wouldn't build in an incentive to do the wrong thing. It would just be a mistake in design, somebody wasn't a good designer. But as we convert to the new world order system, I see all the time where the incentives built into the system are to make the existing system dysfunctional, and then you can go in and repair it. And as you repair it, you implement some aspect or another of the new world order.
Yeah. Well, this hammer and scorecard stuff was new to me. I hadn't heard about this before until I saw that lady there on that show, which we played the audio from, and it makes perfect sense. They were using this.
It's really a fascinating story, and I really recommend that anybody who is the least bit interested go back to the beginning, with Sheriff Arpaio and his effort. Actually, it was his cold case posse that started the investigation into Obama's birth certificate, and after it was discovered and reported that there were a lot of anomalies in the birth certificate, then they went on to do this story out of Seattle about Hammer.
Yeah, it looks like we might be back on the air. I'm not sure, but it looks like I've made more progress than I've been able to make. So I think we're back on the air. It's a matter of people actually discovering that. And yeah, the numbers are going up. So it looks like people are starting to learn that we're back on the air. So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are just rejoining us, let me just say that you've missed a lot. We will have this broadcast. And in fact, maybe what I'll do after the show today, maybe I'll just go ahead and it'll take a while to upload. We will definitely have this available in the archives, and we will definitely we'll replay it on the stream at some point. Maybe I'm not sure how long it would take to upload it, but anyway, we will have it available. But we're talking about Hammer and Scorecard. These are two automation systems that have been used, apparently, at least according to this audio that we played from the attorney, who is Michael Flynn's attorney and a former prosecutor. So she's not like some kind of whack job conspiracy nut. She's somebody that seems like a very credible witness, certainly with credentials that people would believe. And she's saying that this is being used in this election to jack up the numbers for Joe Biden, to steal the election. And when this happens, I think people need to be paying attention to it. This article that I've been sharing from says Dennis Montgomery, testified, and he's a CIA whistleblower. He testified regarding Scorecard and the Hammer while under oath and while being videotaped at the FBI's secure Washington, D.C. field office, SCIF. SCIF, once again, is stands for, it's SCIF, Sensitive Compartmentalized Information Facility. These are the high secure facilities where it should be completely impossible to be penetrated by signals and what have you. They say if CIA whistleblower Montgomery had lied about anything, he would be in prison today for lying to the FBI. Well, many times people that tell the truth to the FBI still end up in prison. But as of right now, they say he's not in prison. Director of National Intelligence John Negroponte invoked the state secrets privilege and the Government Protective Act against Montgomery in order to muzzle him and prevent him from revealing illegal acts that have been committed by the government.
John Negroponte, by the way, was the first DNI, Director of National Intelligence. They are the ones that control the systems of government. Okay, so if Negroponte did that to Dennis Montgomery, then that's like an admission that what Dennis Montgomery was saying is true.
Yeah. So it says Montgomery testified regarding Scorecard and Hammer while under oath, while being videotaped at the FBI's secure SCIF. And skipping down here, Carletta Wells, a U.S. Department of Justice litigator and assistant director of the U.S. Department of Justice since the 1990s, told Montgomery that the state secrets privilege and governor protective order cannot be invoked by government officials for the purpose of covering up government malfeasance. If covering up government malfeasance is the government's intention, Wells told Montgomery the muzzle order is null and void. The Obama administration illegally commandeered the Hammer and Scorecard. They moved the Hammer to Fort Washington, Maryland, on February 3rd, 2009. The Obama White House had an encrypted VPN. So that's what they were talking about. Somebody else, I heard rumblings of this VPN, and I was wondering what they were talking about. That's what they're talking about. The Obama White House had an encrypted VPN in order to access the hammer at will, Vicky, according to this report.
Wow, okay.
On December 20th, 2015, as part of a summary of information disclosed in the whistleblower tapes, the American Report revealed the following information on the American Report's official Facebook page. Florida voter registration disk removed and new disk inserted for redistricting via the Hammer computer system in Fort Washington, Maryland, via Navy Intel cover. They stole the Florida election via redistricting in Florida. How many other states did Brennan and Clapper do this? FBI General Counsel James Baker, testifying under oath before a joint congressional committee, stated that he took possession of Dennis Montgomery's evidence. Baker dispatched FBI Special Agent Walter Guardina and William Barnett to the FBI Miami field office in August 2015 to pick up Montgomery's computer hard drives. Baker testified before Congress in October 2018, quote, I'm turning to the Bureau to describe this. So his client was an individual named Dennis Montgomery, who I believe, to the best of my recollection, he said that he had been a U.S. government contractor and in the course of that work had come across evidence of unlawful surveillance by the government of Americans and including government officials and wanted to give that information to the Bureau, which eventually did take place, unquote. Baker confirmed that Montgomery had provided his FBI agents with evidence that government officials were conducting unlawful domestic surveillance of Americans, including other government officials. It is of utmost importance to recognize that Robert Mueller's FBI supplied the computers for the Hammer, according to Montgomery. Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin famously stated, I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how. But what is extraordinarily important is this, who will count the votes and how. So that's the article from Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. Mm-hmm. This is monumental and should be talked about, should be being discussed everywhere. And yet
it should be.
In an age where the social media and big tech are completely censoring everything that's going on, not really surprising that it's not.
Well, Dave Janda, I'm sure you know who he is, right? Mm-hmm. He did a program with General Tom McInerney on this very subject, on the Hammer, and it got taken down.
What a surprise.
Yeah, and
everything.
Steve Bannon's program, now he said he was taken down because he made a comment about, off with the heads of, some people. But, I mean, that's kind of just a hyperbolic
metaphoric
statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an excuse.
That segment that he had in his program about Mark Zuckerberg basically funding elections boards, that was huge. I think, my personal opinion, is that Bannon was taken down because of his election coverage.
Yeah,
because of that reveal.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised, and we do run him on the stream, and you can get his archives up on the web. Maybe we'll put the link in the show notes. We don't endorse Bannon. I think he's got his own problems, but there is some interesting and important information that comes out of that show. So that's why we run it. Anyway, we got a call on the line. I think this is a call from New Jersey. So let's go ahead and take the call. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Darren. Are you on the air?
Yeah,
I can't get you over the...
Yeah, we've been having some problems today with the Shoutcast server, so we should be up now, unless it went back down again. As far as I know, we're on the air.
You keep going in and out. I can't even understand you.
Really? Okay.
So you are having problems on your end. I want to make sure it's not me.
No, we've been having some problems today. It went out for several. I had to send a support ticket to tech support, And it was ironic that we're talking about computer glitches with regard to elections, and we have our own problem here. But
I can't understand you at all. I'll tell you what, I'll just call you back next week, okay? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't know why he wouldn't be able to understand. But anyway, guess we'll have to test the phone lines out too. You know, I don't know if this broadcast was a car. I think the wheels would be coming off, Vicky.
Well, this is a subject that I know they really do not want discussed. They really don't want people to understand how their so-called innovative systems and disruptive technology really will implement a system of absolute totalitarian control in an invisible way. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the first time in world history that they could implement a totalitarian system without having a million-man army.
Yeah.
You know, holding everybody at gunpoint. It's all behind the curtain. It's all invisible. But the control is absolute.
Yeah, we had, I don't know, maybe, here's Joe Biden yesterday. I don't know if you want to hear this, but probably not. But he's pretty much just about declaring victory already, and why not? Because the networks are calling it for him for the most part. My understanding is, I haven't checked this firsthand, I heard it secondhand, but NBC News is now calling him the president-elect. I'm sure probably the other networks are as well. So here he is, trying to sound presidential yesterday.
We don't have a final declaration of victory yet, but the numbers tell us it's clear. Tell us a clear and convincing story. We're going to win this race. Just look at what has happened since yesterday. 24 hours, we were behind in Georgia. Now we're ahead, and we're going to win that state. 24 hours ago, we were behind in Pennsylvania, and we are going to win Pennsylvania.
No, now he's admitting they were behind. Isn't it interesting? 24 hours ago, we were behind here. We were behind there. All of a sudden, we're ahead. Isn't that great? So we're going to win.
It's those magic ballots.
It's that magic hammer. Should be, instead of hammer and scorecard, it should be hammer and sickle.
Well, it's that too, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
And now we're ahead, but we're winning in Arizona, we're winning in Nevada, and in fact, our lead just doubled in Nevada. We're on track to over 300 electoral college votes. And look at the national numbers. We're going to win this race with a clear majority of the nation behind us. We've gotten over 74 million votes. Let me repeat that. 74 million votes. That's more than any presidential ticket has ever gotten in the history of the United States of America. And our vote total is still growing. We're beating Donald Trump by over 4 million votes.
Yeah, the vote total is still growing because we're still producing more ballots.
And that's a margin is still growing as well.
Uh-huh.
One of the things I'm especially proud of is how well we've done across America. And we're going to be the first Democrat to win in Arizona in 24 years. We're going to be the first Democrat to win Georgia in 28 years.
And nobody showed up to his rallies. They had to rent cars. They were renting cars. And they were producing these cars and to make it look like they actually had people at the rallies. This is just incredible. All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. We got to take the break. I don't know how much anybody can stand to that anyway. But anyway, we'll take the break. We'll be back in a moment. This is Government America. Don't go away.
To find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
All right, we're back. This is Govern America. In the home stretch of the broadcast, and by the way, I called the call-in number during the break, and for some reason it wasn't breaking up for me. I didn't have that problem, so I don't know why the caller did. It's just been kind of a weird show today, and but we're still here. We're recovering from the mess we had earlier. So that's the way it is. But before the break, we were playing audio from Joe Biden. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, Vicky. I do have one more clip from about the Justice Alito declaration.
Yeah, that would be good. I'd like to hear that. I just saw a reference to it in an article somewhere.
Yeah, Justice Alito, supposed because we played the audio from Biden yesterday. That was supposed to be a big victory speech, apparently, but it was toned down a little after the federal judge decision. And here's a little clip about that.
I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had a big speech planned where they expected to declare victory tonight, but that has suddenly changed. So what has their confidence so shaken? Well, just a few hours ago, a huge ruling was handed down by Justice Alito at the Supreme Court, temporarily ordering all ballots received after 8 p.m. on Election Day in Pennsylvania to be segregated and secured. Now, if those ballots are counted, they must be counted separately. This was already supposed to be happening, but apparently the Secretary of State could not confirm that county boards were complying. So now they're forced to.
So there you go.
Yeah, that situation where they're using the courts. Whoever that election supervisor is should just be arrested because she was violating the law.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay. I tell you what, I'm actually looking for some clips here. I apologize. I'm a little discombobulated after all the mess we've had right now. But one thing, turning a corner a little bit on the COVID mess, because and by the way, one other thing about the election fiasco, isn't it interesting? Here we have the situation, Vicky, where prior to this election mess, we had this huge scandal going on with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Now how much are you hearing about that? I mean, that's just completely fallen off the map, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. Very conveniently so. So, the question is, what will come of that? Probably nothing. Probably nothing. And Biden's going to, if he prevails, and I would say at this point there's a good chance that he does. Because everything, the entire establishment, the intelligence establishment, the media, which is huge, they're all on his side.
Yeah. If he does prevail, it will be the end of our country. That's it. It will be the end of our country because the Biden crime syndicate, the Democratic machine, they are criminal, from top to bottom. Yeah. And they've all been making money on the conversion of these systems. They've been in bed with the big tech since the Al Gore's reinvention of government.
Yeah, I don't know what this.
So it will be permanent control.
One thing that's interesting. Speaking of permanent control, with regard to the COVID mess that we're in, because all of this stuff is going on in the background, it's continuing. The totalitarian controls with the face diapers, the mandatory face diapers, the promising that we're going to have mandatory shots, or at least, in many cases they want to mandate it. With the Biden administration, I think that there's a much greater likelihood that it'll be mandated for a lot of different things. Ultimately, what they often do to get things implemented is they will pay the states to implement things, pay the states to pass the implementing legislation. But I found it interesting. You remember the CARES Act? The one that just was passed?
Not specifically.
Yeah, this was like the thing that was just signed into law by Donald Trump. Became Public Law 116-136, but before that, it was H.R. 748. And this was supposedly to help, with the president, help people with the stimulus money and everything. One thing that's interesting, I'm looking at congress.gov right now, the page where this bill appears. And you're never going to guess when it was introduced.
Wasn't it in January or something?
January 24th.
Yeah, January 24th.
And you can say, well, that's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it is when you realize January 24th of 2019.
Well, that is interesting.
Yeah, because you could say if it was January 24th of 2020, they might have known. There's a chance they might have known. Even though they say they didn't. But yeah, I wouldn't have believed it if somebody had told me, but I'm looking right at it on Congress's own website. January 24th, 2019, introduced in-house.
Who introduced it, do you know?
I can certainly look up the sponsors.
Yeah.
It was the main sponsor was Representative Joe Courtney, Democrat from Connecticut. And let's see, there's a whole host of co-sponsors. My goodness, big long list. Much too long, way too long to read off.
Uh-huh. Well, this whole pandemic planning, it was announced by George W. Bush in 2005. And they've been working on it all this time. And apparently that was in response to a World Health Organization report about what came to be called bird flu.
Mm-hmm.
In Indonesia and some of those countries over there. And that's when they started on the whole pandemic planning. But everything is triggered by a dialectic that provides the justification for why we need to do this. And every big system, whether you're talking about the National Human Resource Management System, the Nationalized Elections System, the National Pandemic Planning System, the National 911 System, all of these national systems are actually global systems. So the people of the United States, through these dialectics, have been building the global systems of totalitarian control.
Yeah. I realize now why I was actually missing some clips, and I forgot I had put them up on the server, and I forgot to download them. So I'm doing that now. There's some important information here. One of it, okay, let me just do this. There's a clip. In fact, this is from North Idaho Exposed. This is your...
my friend
Yeah,
Casey.
Your friend Casey. And I think you sent this to me earlier in the week. About the Idaho vote suppression. Mm-hmm. They're not letting people in, so let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
State's authority to regulate the conduct of the people is to protect other members of society, right? So this is all designed to protect members of society. And so when we say you're required to wear a mask because we believe it is dangerous not to, right? So they back that up by science. Now, if you want to challenge that, you're free to.
Yes, we will. Backed it up by science. What science?
We're here because people were being denied the right to vote.
Okay, I should have probably set this up a little better. They're at the courthouse. I forget which county. Do you know off the top?
Payette County.
Okay, Payette County Courthouse, and this gentleman there is explaining to them why they're not allowed to vote. And in fact, I guess they weren't even supposed to be in the courthouse without a face diaper. And So anyway, this is an excuse because a lot of these people are not. They're not going to take it. They're not going to play into this whole face diaper nonsense. I firmly believe this is the prerequisite or a precursor to the mark of the beast. They're conditioning people.
Oh, it is. Definitely is.
They're conditioning people that you can't, that you must obey, that you can't go and buy at the store without complying, without following mandates, following orders. And so this is a social conditioning process to get people used to whatever rule du jour, rule of the day might happen to come down. And, it's disheartening to see people at least not putting up a little effort, to push back on some of this stuff. People are going along with it too easily.
Yeah. In the town I'm in on Monday, they'll be voting on a mask mandate for the town that I live in. And there's going to be a rally at City Hall at, 3? It starts at 3 in the afternoon to oppose this mask mandate. But, yeah, they're doubling down, and it's getting the people used to tyrannical control.
Yep.
They will give an order and we will hop. And the thing is that the public health system is not accountable to the people. It is, in Idaho, the way they set it up, they are independent agencies. Mm-hmm. And the district, that's the public health districts, they are not accountable to the people at all. They work with the CDC, and the CDC works with the WHO. So you could say that this is basically an international takeover, a management level takeover of our government.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I realized that the way that they've done this is through the environment, environmental health. Now, CSIS just did a program recently that I consider to be one of the most important programs that I've ever watched, because there were so many things that they said that are like trailheads. When I listen to a video, I'm listening for keywords that I can search on. And One Health was one of them. I mentioned that last week. One Health is the idea of an environmental management program that includes human health and animal health and their ecosystems, i.e., their habitats. Mm-hmm. Now, all of these people in the environmental community and in the public health community, they are not accountable to the public at all, period. But they are moving into position to exert control over where we live, how we live, and everything else. Now, in this CSIS program, they talked about these boring administrative jobs, things like land use planning, and just these boring administrative jobs. Well, those boring administrative jobs have absolute control over you, even though they have been up to this point basically invisible. Mm-hmm. And the way that they implement these programs is through the Economic Development Administration. There is a pipeline of federal money coming right down into our county governments that is through the Economic Development Administration for economic development programs. And that's how the feds have basically bought off our local officials.
Yep.
To get this federal money. And it's kind of like a private club, of people that are involved in economic development, urban renewal, opportunity zones, enterprise zones, workforce development zones. It's always micromanaged money that has been used to implement and move us progressively towards this centralized system of control.
Yeah.
So all the while we think we have a free country and we have private enterprise and all of that stuff. Well, big news, we don't.
Yep.
We don't have that, you know.
Yeah. And I wish more people were aware. You know, I wish. That's why we have to spread the word, ladies and gentlemen. I realize it's the 11th hour. You know, we've been at this for a long time, sharing information for a long time. Sadly, people are waking up, but they're waking up much too late. I mean, it's good that they're waking up, but it's sad that it's taken so long. You know, you don't. You know, the old saying that you don't wait till you're, you know, neck deep in alligators before you talk about swamp renovation.
Yeah. Well, and the bad part is that there are a lot of organizations out there that are, you know, a lot of them sponsored by the Koch brothers, you know, before David died. Mm-hmm. But it was always freedom, freedom, freedom. What people didn't understand is that our government was privatizing the functions of government. And so people that were supporting the freedom agenda were actually supporting the agenda that the Koch brothers were promoting for freedom for the corporations. It wasn't freedom for people. Never. It was never about freedom for people. People were just being used as useful idiots as our government was being privatized.
Yeah.
And, you know, the privatization means not only transferring a government function to the private sector, it means transferring power to the private sector. And this whole organization of environmental protection and public health, when they get firmly and totally into place, they're just moving into position now where they can exert dictatorial control. Okay, when they get fully moved into place, they will be the managers and your elected officials just the puppets.
Yep, there you go. And everything is automated in society. Everything is controlled by algorithm. You're literally going to be controlled by these computers, as we're seeing now with the election and all the stuff that can go wrong by design. Your whole lifestyle will go wrong by design. Everything is a manipulation and a control. I want to continue finishing this audio up real quick.
Because people were being denied the right to vote because of their attire or lack thereof. And it wasn't indecency. It was only because they did not want to wear a mask for whatever reason. And that is completely unconstitutional and voter suppression.
We are at the Payette County Courthouse. Idaho Constitution states that in Article 1, Section 19, right of suffrage guaranteed, no power, civil or military, shall at any time interfere with or prevent the free and lawful exercise of the right of suffrage. The right of suffrage is the right to vote. Last week, at least 2 people on 2 separate days were first denied and then interfered with when they came in to vote. And it was recorded on video, and so we kind of got involved a little bit because they asked us to, the people that happened to. I contacted the county clerk, and the county clerk told me that she apologized. She said she would take care of the issue. She said she would communicate with the guards and all of that. And then the next day it happened again. I guess there was confusion because this is the courthouse and they think that they can keep people out of the courthouse but can't keep people out from voting. But Article 1, Section 18 of the Idaho Constitution.
Because it won't post.
Title 1, Article 1, Section 18 of the Idaho Constitution is titled Justice to be freely and speedily administered. And the first line in that says, courts of justice shall be open to every person. These courts are not open to every person. They're violating the Constitution of Idaho.
So that's Idaho, and at least a particular county. And you said Payette County?
Payette County.
Payette. Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know if it happened in any other counties in Idaho, but for some reason our Supreme Court went along with and ordered people to wear masks inside of our courthouses. Now, why they would do that, I don't know. I looked at the order, and I didn't see any reference to any laws or anything. It was just kind of an edict from the gods on high in the Idaho Supreme Court that people will wear masks in the courthouse. So
there you go.
I don't know. I don't know if we have any attorneys to look at that in Idaho that are willing to work on it, but apparently we don't.
Well, there needs to probably be a lawsuit filed. And
that's the problem with having a system where everything has to go to court, because you have to rely on attorneys to go to court.
Last week we were trying to play audio from Hunter Biden. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that I hadn't bleeped out. I had forgotten there were swear words in it. I have actually bleeped it out this time, and I want to come back to it briefly in the waning moments of the broadcast, because this story has completely dropped off the radar now with all the election fraud that's going on. But it's still very much going to be and continuing to be a story. I think it will come back if Biden prevails, because it almost has to. At least with the truth media, it'll be a continuing story. But audio was released in which Hunter Biden, it was one of these deals where I guess he didn't know he was being recorded. He essentially confessed his partnership with the China spy chief, and also he said Joe and Hunter Biden were named as criminal case witnesses. So anyway, here's the audio, the revised bleeped audio.
I get calls from my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father will not stop sending the calls to Eric. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of literally, Dr. Patrick Koh, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, founded. It is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment and signed a $4 billion deal to build the largest LNG port in the world. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Darren, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case, and my father without telling me.
So that's the audio. It's interesting that he just admits, so there could be no doubt they were working with the Chinese, because he says it right there in the clip. But how many people are going to remember that? How much attention is it going to get from this point forward? Probably very little, I would imagine.
Well, that reminds me that during the Obama administration, they signed partnership agreements with China on the healthcare system. Whoa, what a coincidence.
Yeah, and everything that's happening right now seems to be going right along with the Chinese model. The social credit scoring system, all of the technocratic systems, It is an electronic prison that's being built for everyone. It's anyway, ladies and gentlemen. Again, text govern to 80123 if you want to be notified of our broadcasts. If we do emergency broadcasts or special broadcasts outside of the regular show time, if you text govern to 80123, you will receive those notifications. I talked about that earlier in the show. We weren't on live at the time, and we will make this broadcast available in the archives and on the stream later on after we have a chance to kind of re-rack it and get it up there. Anyway, we got to go. We're out of time. Pray for this republic. Do what you can to restore it. Thank you very much, Vicky. A little bit of a bumpy ride today.
Well, it's always interesting.
It always is. Hey, thank you very much for being with us, and join us back here next week, if not sooner. God bless you, folks. Talk to you later.